because you were at Purdue in times where I heard about just kind of, and I'm a Purdue, before I was a Purdue player, I was a Purdue fan. And after I'm a Purdue player, I'm a Purdue fan. So I hear about the 80s. So that's Coach Keady. So what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 85. So my freshman year at Purdue was Coach Keady's sophomore year at Purdue. He had just come in the year before. So
right.
I was
and
there.
That was Roosevelt's senior year then, right?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How was that?
That was great. I mean, Gene was just starting to build something then, and we won the co-champion of the Big Ten in '84 with Illinois, who had this great team, and they were predicted to win. We were predicted ninth. Now, back then, it was still a 10-team league. And by the way, I'm in favor of going back to 10 anytime we want to do it. But I'm a curmudgeon that way. But we were picked ninth in that league. We had Ricky Hall and Kurt Clausen was on that team, and Jim Rowinski ended up being the MVP of the league. And but that team was picked ninth and probably overrated because nobody was expecting anything of this team. And all of a sudden, they just get on a roll, and Rowinski's this force in the middle and was really the first guy of the Muscle Beach guys that we had through the 80s and the 90s. Guys like Craig Riley and Steve Scheffler and these just big, strong guys in the middle that really made other teams frustrated because nobody else had guys that big. But Jim Rowinski's the MVP of the league that year. We win the Big Ten championship. I would argue it's the single best single season coaching job anybody's ever done, because how that team ended up winning the Big Ten is still just mind boggling to me. But
this
it was
the team that came in ninth. This is the team that picked ninth,
and they won the league.
They won the Big Ten. Damn.
And they shared it with Illinois that year. And then of course we went out in the first round of the tournament because we shot like 20%. And I think that was the year we were at Memphis, and Keith Lee lit us up, and I think Keady said something after the game about how we couldn't shoot paper balls into a trash can that day. But it's funny. Gene was one of a kind. We don't have guys like that anymore, like who would just say whatever's on their mind in a press conference. But when he first came to Purdue, the thing that really endeared him to Purdue fans is we go down to IU and we get beat, and Bobby Knight's working the refs, and they're lapping it up. The refs are at that one game, and Gene's just really mad. And he gets into the press conference after the game, and he says something like, "If you think I'm going to sit here and take that and put up with that for all of this, I'm not. You don't know me very well." And it's like, oh, we got someone who's going to stand up to Bob. All right,
that's dope.
And he did. And it's funny that they're friends now. I mean, it's kind of weird for probably both Purdue and Indiana fans that they're friends now. But I guess when you're not beating each other's brains out anymore, then you have time to find out that you've probably got more in common than you have differences.
That's dope. And what was Mackey like in that time playing? I mean, just being. It
was loud.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it was loud. I mean, we didn't have a student section like we do now. The paint crew and the gene pool before that. I totally would have been that guy. If I would have been like the president of whatever student section we had back then. But we didn't have that. Our seats were always in the top half of the arena, the upper deck of the arena, and kind of all the way around was essentially students. But yeah, that place was loud. It's better now. The crowd is better now, and I think the organized student sections really helps with that. But man, it's one of the loudest buildings I've ever been in for anything. You get into buildings with bigger crowds, like football stadiums, and obviously those are domes, but the intimacy of Mackey Arena makes it really difficult to hear when you're down on the floor. Sure. And I was lucky. I was never good enough to be in Boiler Brass, so I wasn't in the pep band. I just got to sit in the stands and yell my head off. And that was always the highlight. I looked forward to basketball more than pretty much anything else, and marching band. In fact, I didn't say blew off, but my first physics test at Purdue my freshman year was the night of the Purdue Indiana home game. And so I asked the professor, I said, do you know that this is the night of the Purdue Indiana home game? Because I'm an idiot freshman, right? And he just looks up in this big crowded room of freshmen and says, did you come here for an education or for basketball? And I'm thinking, well, why not both? But so you know where the physics building is on campus. It's like 2 blocks from Massey.
Yeah.
So that night of the test, I got all dressed up in my gear for the game. I took the test in 20 minutes. I walked out, walked down the stairs. Everybody staring at me. Slammed the test on my desk, and I'm in Mackey Arena in time to boo Bobby Knight as he walks through the tunnel, which is really one of the highlights of the season. So yeah, that was
beautiful. Super cool.
So I guess that might not have been the something I would recommend to my children when they're in school. I tell them that story, and then I tell them, don't do that. It only worked for me because physics, the first part of the class was review because I had it in high school. But yeah, the class got a lot harder after that. So you better show up and pay attention.
It's funny. And so like you said, you were there at the beginning of kind of Keady's career. And kind of what it led into from there, kind of after you left, like, because I remember I got here thinking of Grady's father, Greg Eifert. You think of Three Amigos,
saw
think
him.
of Big Dog, and all those
Kip
guys.
Jones. Yep.
Did you see that in Keady early? Did you see him building a program that would go on in the 90s, not only compete with Bob Knight, but win 3 in a row Big Ten championships?
I thought if we could get good enough players, yes. I thought if he could make a champion out of that 1984 team, we got better players, we could do a lot better than that. So, it was really just a matter of getting players. And then, we had Troy Todd and Everett. That was huge for this, the building of this program. And then you land the big dog. Conzo Martin was a fantastic player and a 3-time team captain. I think he was the first underclassman that Keady named a captain. He was a captain as a sophomore. They have Matt Painter was on some of those teams, and he ends up being, both of those guys end up being really good coaches. So, you can tell if Gene could get the right guys, and you had to get, and Matt has talked about this before too, you had to get guys that fit the culture that he wanted. And Matt made some mistakes early on where he was recruiting guys that were talented but didn't fit the culture. And Gene made those mistakes at one point as well, and then had to go back to what, makes Purdue basketball. And if you can recruit talented guys that want to play the way that Purdue plays and live the basketball player life at Purdue that you need to live, then you have a chance to be very successful. And we've seen that. We saw that with Gene, and we saw that we've seen that now with Matt, with the way that they've been able to build these programs and get some very talented kids. And now, the future is really bright for the team that we put on the court this year. They're doing very well as it is. And you get everybody back next year, assuming everybody comes back, and the guys that are coming in, they have a chance to have a very special season next year.
No, yeah, that's true. From, like you said, from what it's built to what it's built to now, it's been crazy. And I got a question that kind of popped in my head as you were talking. And this may be, I don't know how you may think of this question, but in your eyes, I know I played, obviously, and I committed as a freshman. I was at Purdue. I've seen a lot of Purdue players come through. I get what you're saying about a Purdue guy, what a Purdue guy looks like, what a Purdue guy doesn't look like. But obviously, you've been watching Purdue longer than me. In your eyes, outside of locker room, when you think of Purdue basketball, even growing up, because it seems as though if you get the right Purdue guy now, he maybe could have played for Keady. You know what I mean? And the right guy that played for Keady could have played for Payne. Yep. So what is that Purdue guy in the eyes of, what would you say? What makes a guy a Purdue guy?
It's the hard work. It's the willingness to do what it takes to make yourself better. And also the willingness to perform in the role that the coaches are asking you to perform, even if it's not maybe what you exactly want. But you put the team before yourself. And if you put the team before yourself, ultimately yourself will blossom too. It's hard for 18-year-olds to understand that. But if you get guys that are willing to do that, willing to do the work to succeed, to improve themselves and to perform in the role the coaches ask them to perform in, then you've got a chance, first of all, to have really good team chemistry. But also when you include talented guys doing that, you have a chance to be a great team. And there's a lot to be said for learning those skills in college. When you get to the NBA, I mean, yeah, sure. The NBA has got teams and they're trying to win championships and there's teamwork and stuff involved there. But part of the reason why the NBA doesn't appeal to me as much is it's too much individual and not enough team. Right. And one of the things that really I like about Purdue basketball is individuals can shine. You can have Glenn Robinson, you can have Carson Edwards, you can have guys that really shine still within the concept of the team trying to succeed collectively toward a goal. And that's that to me is what really appeals for Purdue basketball.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense to me, and exactly how I think of it, because that's what happened even early in my career. We come off the baby boilers, DJ Bird. We don't have a bad year that year. We just have a bad non-conference. But that next year, our locker room just wasn't what it should have been, coming last in the Big Ten. Then Paint, in my head, Paint made a commitment to getting Purdue guys, because it felt like those 5 freshmen that came in, Jaquil, Isaac, Vince, PJ Dakota, I feel like they fit the mold. You know what I mean? It kind of brought us back. I know I get credit for it. I don't know why, but I feel like those 5 guys brought us back, and those 5 guys even taught our sophomores a little bit. Those 5 guys end up outworking and end up getting starting positions that year. So, It definitely shows that when you do come in, you do want to play hard. You do want to fit that mold. You do want to give it up yourself for the team, paying to play you. And that's kind of what this play you guys didn't put you on the floor. That's kind of what this team is now. It feels like, in my eyes, I'm not in the locker room, but I feel like this team really gels in the locker room. They get along. They really give themselves up for each other. And that's rare for a team so young to get it so early. But like you were saying, this team is good. Where do you see this team turning the corner going into March?
Well, I think they may have already turned a corner. Now you're getting the kind of production from Jaden Ivey that we might have seen a month ago if he doesn't hurt his knee early in the season, and so that set him back. But the thing about Ivey, and you see it, after every home game, he goes out and shoots for about an hour. This is a guy putting in the work, and he's a coach's son, and you can see that in his game too. And I think it's great. I think he's got a very high ceiling. We're just scratching the surface of what Jaden Ivey can do. But he's going to be the star on this team, maybe even next year, because you see it already at times, what he can, his athletic ability, once he starts getting more comfortable shooting, and when the game slows down for him, so that he's not thinking as much and reacting more to just what he sees, then he's going to be one of the best players in this league, maybe one of the best players in the country. He's got that level of talent. But then, the other guys, they're no slouches, right? Eric Hunter. Eric Hunter's one of those guys that we talk about. Eric Hunter comes into Purdue, I think the 3rd all-time leading scorer in Indiana high school history. This is a guy who can flat out light it up. And Pater wants him to play point and be more of a distributor and run the offense. And get some points when you can and be the best defender on the team. And so he's asking all of these other things of Eric Hunter, and Eric Hunter puts the scoring aside, because I think Eric Hunter could get 25 if he needed to get 25, right? He's capable of that.
I agree.
But that's not his role on the team. So his role is to facilitate for Travion and for, Brandon Newman and Jaden Ivey and whoever else is on the floor, and he does that, and he gets his points when he can. And that, that's a team guy. That's a guy who said, all right, I'm going to do what you're asking me to do. It might not even be my strength, but I'll make it my strength. And we're going to win games this way. And that's, to me, Eric Hunter is, I don't know if he's the captain of the team, because I don't know who the captains are, but that's a guy who leads by example. And you can tell by the way he's taken on the role that he's been given and the way he's excelled at that role.